Welcome to PhD with Women on It, Hack the Future. My name is Beata Young, and today's PhD Positivity Hack delivered will be by our guest Jennifer Arthurton. Topic: How to smash through age limits and chase your dreams. Episode 138 starts here. Let me remind you, this is a grassroots community that focuses on women on IT, an inclusive forum of women in technology, startups, and female leaders who are supported by men as well. And I bring heart to that hustle because empathy is my mojo, and empathy is critical when you smash through age limits and chase your dreams. First, let me mention what's been happening in the world of our community. Watch Chesley Baker's video Relax and Enjoy Your Presentation. The CEO and founder of National Mentoring Day shares her tips and insights on how to handle tricky moments when it comes to presenting. Congratulations to the founder and CEO of KA2 Limited, Chris Andrews. Don't be fooled, I thought it's a male's name, but actually Chris Andrews is a full grown-up woman. And definitely she is a role model for many of us because she just won most empowering ESG tech innovations CEO UK last March on the 4th of March. Cheers to your success, Chris. Jennifer Arthurton has got some great exciting development. Kudos to her, and because she have a very well explained topic about the changes in our brains when it comes to menopause transition. Thank you very much for that interesting topic, and we posted it on our social media streams right now. But stay with us because we want to learn more about how to smash through age limits and chase your dreams. Society says your best years are over by midlife. Ha, little do they know. But what if that's just a myth holding you back from your most powerful and exciting chapter yet? Join us for an inspiring conversation with Jennifer Arthurton, the creator and founder of All Chicks Know Shit, a powerhouse platform and podcast dedicated to empowering midlife women to chase their dreams. Jennifer is a leadership coach, podcast host, speaker, and author who has made her own inspiring midlife course corrections. Now she's here to help us smash through age limits and design your kick-ass next chapter. Jennifer, where in the world are you joining us from?
I am in Toronto, Canada.
Fabulous location. I hope the weather is not too bad.
It's beautiful today. It's gorgeous.
Spring is upon us.
It is. It is.
So, Jennifer, let's start with the question: what inspired you to create Old Chicks Know Shit, and what does the platform aim to achieve?
Old Chicks Know Shit was really born out of my own midlife reinvention that began at the age of 50. So in the year leading up to my 50th birthday, I found myself divorced, unemployed, an empty nester, and I was also bedridden with a stress-related illness. And at that point, I really bought into the fact that, I was faced with the daunting task of having to reinvent my life. And I really, truly believe that nobody started over at 50, that it was the beginning of the end, and that, there was no possibility. I could see no possibility for my life. And then after, wallowing in it for a bit, I started to realize that I had a 30, maybe 40-year chapter ahead of me, like the longest chapter of my life, and that I could choose to live that chapter in a way that felt really, really good to me. So this whole idea that as soon as we reach 45, 50, or whatever the number is, that it's kind of the beginning of the end and that we slow down and coast into the finish line is simply ridiculous, because sitting around for 30 years waiting for the finish line seems a little absurd to me.
Oh,
The mission really is to remind us that, this is not the end of anything. This is simply the beginning of a really powerful new chapter in our lives.
Well, Jennifer, I have to say that I devoted one of the episodes, not solely, but we were talking about Iris Apfel,
Mm,
because it was just
yes.
a day after her passing. And, there are so many kick-ass women. Maybe you have some more great example of how to live life positively even after hitting midlife.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because in the mainstream media, we don't see representation of older women doing amazing things in the world. Like if, my pet peeve in life is, when you see a woman who's over the age of 40, portrayed in mainstream media, it's all like, bladder leakage protection, meal replacement shakes, retirement plans, and all of that kind of thing, which are all very necessary, but they're also tell a fraction of the tale of what it means to live in this chapter of our lives. And so, when I went searching for inspiration for myself about what was possible, I was struggling to find it. And then, after digging and doing the research, I realized that, there are all of these women, and I started the podcast, the Old Chicks No Shit podcast, to showcase their stories so that other women could see themselves, you know, see possibility for their lives and for their next chapters.
Because somehow I call myself also almost midlife. I'm 47, but maybe you should define what is the midlife age. When does it start?
Well, I mean, really, midlife is an arbitrary number, right? But most of my followers and the people in my community are anywhere from like 45 to 65, some even older than that. So it really is kind of it's a self-described chapter of life, I think, where you start questioning, a lot about, who you are and what's important to you and what do you want for the rest of your life. So, in some cases, women are reporting, losing their jobs in their late 40s and struggling to get back into the workforce. And in other women, maybe it's 60 or 55 or whatever it is. So it is a little bit of a self-described chapter, but generally it's anywhere from 45 plus.
Great. So, as I mentioned, I'm 47. Are you open book when it comes to your age?
Absolutely. Yes, I am 58.
I can't believe that. Anyway, and I don't mean, to flatter you to make the good lining for the conversation. So, but I wanted to ask you, go a little bit deeper and talk about your own journey of
Mm,
making midlife course corrections and how
yeah.
did it lead you to where you are today?
Yeah. Um, when I went through what I call my midlife crisis, which, actually I look back on and it was a huge gift for me, and I'll explain more about that. But, when I found myself, divorced, unemployed, an empty nester, and bedridden with a stress related illness, what happened to me was that every identity of who I thought I was in the world, so wife, mother, corporate executive, and at the time I was big into physical fitness, like all of those identities were literally stripped away from me in a very short space of time. And, as I started thinking about, what I wanted next for my life, I realized that I actually didn't know who I was. Like, who was the woman underneath those roles and titles that I played in the world? And so that realization set me on a very deep personal and spiritual development journey, really, to figure out who I was, right? Like, who was this woman? And then from there, it was, what do I want? So the journey of getting to know myself was really about going inwards and listening to my own voice, because like me, many of us were given the script of life very early. It says, be a good girl, go to school, get good marks, get into a good college, get yourself a good job, work your way up the ranks, somewhere in there, stop, get married, have some kids, and, live in a nice suburban neighborhood. So I did all of those things. I checked all of the boxes, but nowhere on the list does it say to check in with yourself. And as women, we are so cultured to see our value in what we do for other people, our ability to have kids, our bodies, all of that type of stuff, right? That we often lose connection with who we are on the inside because we're so focused on everything that's happening on the outside. And, the answer to the question, what's next and what do I want for my life, is based on what's true and important to me. And so really it's an inside job to figure that out, to get to know who you are and what it is that's important and true for you.
And are you happy with who you are and what's important to you?
Yeah. Interestingly, I really like the woman that I've discovered underneath all of those roles that I played. I've learned a lot about myself, and, I always say that this chapter of life is about returning to authenticity, like to the core of who we are as human beings. And so it really is about shedding all of those masks and, those roles and obligations that define us, and coming back to like what's in our hearts, like what is true for us again. And when we align with that authenticity, it feels really, really good, like to be in alignment with who you truly are. So the work that I'm doing now, I'm extremely passionate about. I wake up every day excited that I get to do what I get to do. So yes, I'm extremely happy.
What about confidence? Because I found myself gaining so much more confidence because I used to be very shy, and through life experiences and through my knowledge, I feel so much more confident when I go into a new environment or job interview.
Yeah. Yeah, I think as we get older and we become, more confident with who we are, it definitely it definitely shows. And we see that, the woman who just owns who she is very attractive in a room, regardless of what she looks like. But, I call midlife, it's kind of like it's a double-edged sword. It's called what I call the midlife paradox, in that we are more confident in who we are, but we also doubt ourselves more than we ever have, because we no longer are fit in with the cultural ideal of, the perfect women. Like, our bodies are changing, our faces are changing, we're getting gray hairs. We're being told all the time that we're less relevant and less valuable. So we reach this place where we are more confident in who we are, but then we're also doubting ourselves because of the cultural narrative of what it means to be a woman of the age of 50 or 55, or whatever that number is.
Right. Well, since we are talking about job interviews and hiring, how do I identify and prevent age discrimination in hiring? Do you have any tasks for hiring
Yeah.
managers?
Yeah. I mean, so much of what we have going for us, and, hence the name Old Chicks Know, so KNOW, is the value of our knowledge and our experience, and which is, what produces wisdom, right? And so being able to focus in on, not how many more years is this person going to have in this career, or anything else that might be associated with age, but really focusing on, like, what is the value that this person can deliver today? Because, having had years of experience in many different jobs, also having, developed more emotional skills, more relationship skills, all of that are incredibly valuable in a workspace, and can actually be an excellent points of leadership for younger people in an organization. So there's so much value that I think gets, so much wisdom and so much experience that gets tossed out the window simply because there is a number attached to it, which I think is really, really wrong.
Stupid. Let's call it by
Yeah.
name.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, how do you address the societal myth that suggests our best years are behind us by midlife?
Ugh. This is where it comes back to, I say this all the time, that midlife is actually the most powerful chapter of our lives yet. Because, as, our kids need us less, so we're being pulled in many less directions. Maybe our careers are on autopilot, relationships maybe on autopilot, or maybe we've eliminated some relationships from our lives. But what happens is all of that energy that we have expended outside of ourselves, so in raising families and building our careers and all of those types of things, right? When we can start to recollect that energy, like to pull it back to ourselves and to start to focus that on what's important to us, it is a very, very powerful place to be. And I see this all the time in my community, in the groups that I run, is that midlife women are focusing their time on energy on things that are literally going to change the world. So the beautiful thing is that, they're not making moves or, changing lives and careers because for fame and fortune and money, which, don't get me wrong, everybody should be absolutely well paid for what they do, but they're doing it from a place of wanting to make a difference, right? Wanting to solve a problem, to make life better for somebody, to change something within our society. And, they have all of the knowledge and the experience to do that. And so it becomes a very, very powerful time of refocusing energy to what is true for us, what's important to us, and, and what kind of a life do we lead? What kind of legacy would we like to leave?
But also, it's probably through our empathetic genes that show us what needs to be fixed and what needs to be taken care of, because the biggest problems are shared problems, the ones that nobody owns, but everybody is affected by.
Right, exactly.
Now, what are some common challenges or limiting beliefs that midlife women face when pursuing their dreams? And how do you help them overcome these obstacles?
Yeah. So often, we as human beings, we put ourselves in boxes, right? So we tend to think of ourselves as I'm just this or I'm just that, right? Because that's based on, our experience. In fact, I heard it articulated so beautifully by a man named David Fries on an event that I was attending, where he said, if you focus on, changing your life from a place of experience, you're going to see what you already know. But if you focus on making changes to your life based on possibility, you're going to see things that you never see before. And for some of us, opening the doors to possibility when we've been in a box, I'm an accountant, I'm, whatever it might be, we see ourselves in that box and we can't see possibility outside of that. And so really going inside again to explore all of the different parts of who we are, right, can allow us to be able to see other possibilities for things that we might not have considered before. And, when we can unpack those stories and unhinge ourselves from how we've been for the last maybe 10 or 20 years, like we're used to being experts in our lives, right? By the time we get to be our late 40s and 50s, and having to start over can feel very vulnerable, very scary to have to adopt a beginner's mindset. And so, being able to get ourselves to the place where we're willing to explore, where we're willing to keep learning, where we're willing to see possibility, is how we can open doors to new things, to different things that we might not have ever seen before. And so really it's about challenging our beliefs. Like, we are so much more capable than we ever give ourselves credit for. And it's about challenging the beliefs that we have that hold us back. I can't hear you.
I see that I've been muted. Apologies for that. I've been talking very beautifully because we talked about the beginner's mindset and the possibilities, and I brought some great statistics to you. A study of 2.7 million startups in the United States showed that a 50-year-old founder was almost twice as likely to enjoy business success as a 30-year-old founder. The research also revealed that the average age of a startup founder, fast growing tech startup, is much older than we might think. It is at 45 years old.
Yes, I love that.
Beautiful. Do you have some stories who you invited of exciting career women or women who started at midlife?
Yeah. One of my favorite things to do is the podcast because I get to have conversations with these incredibly inspiring women who are, chasing their dreams. One that comes to mind is a woman by the name of Melissa Davey, who left a very long career, I think, in the medical insurance industry and decided to follow her passion for making films, making documentaries. For her entire life, she'd been interested in the film industry. She had never made a film. And then, when she got to, I think it was her late 60s, she decided that, like, okay, if not now, when? And she set out to make a documentary. She released a documentary last year called Beyond 60, profiling 8 women whose, their lives and insights beyond the age of 60. And she's just about to release another documentary film. So she went from being a corporate executive in the insurance industry to becoming a documentary filmmaker, in her late 60s. So incredibly inspiring. And this was a perfect example of having to adopt a beginner's mindset. I mean, she told me that every morning she woke up and asked herself, like, what do I need to learn today? How can I learn this? And who can I get to help me learn what I need to learn? So incredibly inspiring. And there's so many more of these stories on the podcast for sure.
Oh my goodness, I just checked. Beyond 60 is definitely something to follow through, your audience. There is a great quote you use, if not now, when, but also if not me, who?
Right. Yes.
There you go. That's a call for action, ladies and gentlemen. We've got a lovely comment coming from our audience. Thank you, Olga Vesina. It's a great show, she says. And we have also IP of it in Patrick's opinion. Great show. The funny thing about the youth entrepreneurship notion is that it has only existed since the advent of the internet. In my childhood, I presumed, being naturally entrepreneurial, that it was a young person's game. And actually, in those days, the average age for entrepreneurs to start a business was in their 50s.
Yes, love it.
So what changed? What really changed the narrative that it is believed that it's a young people's game?
Well, I think to the comment that the person made, the internet also has a lot to do with it. But I think, our lives have become busier and busier and busier, and we are all struggling to keep up. So the idea that, that we have the time and even the mental resources to be able to go and start a business, it can be very, very overwhelming. And, especially when we have families and, we are, providing for our families and, we need a certain level of income, all of that type of thing. It's very, very difficult to go back and, to start over. Like, you have to have a really good savings, you have to have a plan, all of those types of things. I think when we lived simpler lives, it was maybe a little bit easier to start something on the side. But I think we are all so stretched keeping up with busy lives today that it makes it seem a lot more difficult, I think.
Is there any word of encouragement to those women, these chicks who fear being having a midlife crisis?
And I think I said this at the beginning of the show, this is not the end of anything. It is simply, the beginning of a beautiful new chapter in your life where, you get to, if you have a long held dream or a desire or something that you've been putting on the back burner, this is the chapter where you can bring it to the forefront and, to fill that part of you. Because I always say, our dreams and desires are not random. They're parts of us that are wanting to be expressed. And, to live a full life would be to explore all of the different parts of who we are, because we were never meant to be the same person from the beginning to the end of our lives. We were meant to explore all of the parts of us in the different chapters of our lives. And so, those dreams are the keys to exploration of parts of us that we might not have a relationship with. Maybe we knew at one point, but we lost touch with. Or maybe, like for me, it was discovering yourself for the very first time.
How to do more? It is quite often sad to see that once people retire, for example, they feel like broken and they have nothing else to do and they are not sure what to do. How can you find passion at the age when you hit retirement?
Yeah, it really goes back to finding those things that you love, like things that light you up. One of the things I say to all of my clients is to follow the crumbs of joy. So if there is something that you've been wanting to do that you've been putting off because you didn't have the time, now's the time to do it, no matter how ridiculous it may seem to you. Right? Because if you start taking steps towards that thing, maybe you don't do the actual thing, but maybe it opens doors for you that you didn't know were possible. And so it's like leaning into possibility, to exploring those desires that you have. So, if you want to become a race car driver, maybe go spend a day at the track, right? Maybe just, go drive a car on the track, things like that. But just start opening the doors to those things that really light you up. Because when you're in that space of being really lit up from the inside out, you can see possibility for things that you might not see before.
Why would you not see it before? Why is such belief that you may not see some things? Maybe they already have a plan, but they never had the courage, and they still don't have the courage. How to tackle that?
Yeah, I always say, take the tiniest step that you can in the direction that you'd like to go. So typically as humans, we're very all or nothing. It's either I'm doing the thing 100% or I'm not doing it at all. But sometimes we can hack our brain, hack the fear mechanisms in our brain a little bit by taking, tiny steps in the direction that we want to go. And it is amazing how far tiny steps will take you, because one day you'll look back and be like, wow, look how far I've come. But you're doing it tiny step, at tiny step after tiny step. And, your brain is less likely to sound the alarm bells, right, when you take tiny steps than if you try to jump into something, and that will definitely increase your fear.
Oh, absolutely. Small steps
Yeah.
lead to big accomplishments.
Yeah.
How can midlife women leverage their unique experiences and wisdom to create a fulfilling business?
I love that. Again, I think it comes back to, following your passion, follow what lights you up, what feels really true and important to you. Because when we are, again, as I mentioned, when we are aligned with, who we are and what matters to us, we will have a lot more energy, a lot more resources to be able to, keep taking those steps. Because, the journey to starting a business is not an easy one. It requires you to show up every day in spite of fear, in spite of doubt. And having something that you are passionate about to kind of pull you forward on the days where maybe you're struggling with doubt and belief, is really, really important. And like I said, midlife women are very driven by a sense of meaning. I've heard it described that for men, midlife is a crisis of identity. And for women, it's a crisis of meaning. Like, what does my life mean? Like, what legacy am I leaving? How am I impacting the world? So finding that thing that's important to you, important enough to you that it'll keep pulling you forward, I think is really important. And again, open the doors to possibility and adopt the beginner's mindset. Like, start from the very beginning. What do I need to learn today? And how can I learn that?
And do you have some tools or practical strategies that our viewers could use, even if they don't hit that midlife?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, connection with ourselves and like understanding who we are is really, really important. And I encourage all of the women in my community to spend some time building that relationship with themselves. So I encourage them to spend time in what I call the 3 S's. So silence, stillness, and solitude. because in silence, stillness, and solitude is where we can hear our own voice. So, we're usually pulled in 99 directions every day, and we fall to the very bottom of our to-do list. So spending even 5 minutes with yourself in the morning, maybe it's having coffee in silence before your house wakes up, or going for a walk in nature, or, just spending time with yourself to check in and ask yourself. You could ask yourself questions like, how are you today? What are you feeling like? What would you like today? How would you like this day to go? Like all of those types of things, just to be able to hear your own voice before you get sucked into the busyness of life. And so regardless of where you are in life, I mean, if I had done that a lot earlier, maybe I wouldn't have gotten to the point where, I was 50 and completely disconnected from who I was. But checking in with yourself to see what's important to you and see what matters to you and what you need, I think is just critical for everybody.
And do you advise to do it every day or as often as possible or once a month?
I say to do it as often as possible. Ideally, if you can spend 5 minutes a day, if that's available to you, or 2 minutes a day, but just to start somewhere, right? Just to develop the practice. And, it doesn't need to be, a long, very in-depth 20-minute meditation. It can be literally sitting for 5 minutes and focusing on your own breath, just to kind of connect back in. So it doesn't need to be something big. Again, it's like tiny steps. So if you have 2 minutes available to you, then do it in 2 minutes. If you have 10 minutes, great. If you want to go for a 15-minute walk, better yet. But to try and build up some kind of regularity and consistency so that you are building that relationship, because it really is just like we would spend time with another person to build a relationship. It's about spending time with ourselves and being able to hear ourselves.
And as an age coach, what can people benefit from your advisory work?
Yeah, what I spend most of my time working on with people is around mindset and belief, because as I said, we all come into this with a very preconceived notion of who we think we are and what we're capable of, and so the clients that come to me know they want something different for their next chapter. They know they want to make some kind of a change, but they're struggling for the what and the how. So really it's about understanding, what are the beliefs and mindset that are standing in the way of this, and how can we move those to the side so that you can see that you have everything you need. Because I truly believe that our life, like every experience that we have had up to this point, is exactly what we need to take us to what it is that we want. So it's just really understanding, being able to kind of, step back and see ourselves differently. One of my favorite sayings is, you can't read the label on the jar from inside the jar. And so it's my job to help reflect back to people their own capability to be able and to help them see the possibility, to open the doors to possibility so that they can start creating something different for their lives.
So in other words, it's again practicing that silence, stillness, and solitude, but more in a coachy environment to really understand what you have achieved, right?
Exactly. Yes, absolutely. I mean, looking back to, the things that you have achieved in your career, but also the things that you have achieved in your life, right? For most of us, by the time we reach this time of our life, we have we have conquered so many challenges and obstacles and come out of the other side. We've built things, we've created things, we've raised families. All of that is incredibly valuable experience. And it's everything that we need to move to whatever it is that we want to do next.
And and here's another one, Jennifer, because we tend to hold on to the toxic residue, and toxic, I mean, in a sense of it is not helping us, because the fact that you were being denied a promotion or being denied a job, or you were laid off, that is something that is preventing you so many times from focusing on the positives.
Right. Yeah, that's very true. So when we don't have a good sense of self, when we're not anchored in our own capability, it can be easy for somebody else's opinion or some kind of external circumstance to really define who we are or who we think we are. And often that's one opinion, it's one experience, and it really has no bearing on how capable we are. And so that is the work, really, to be able to see ourselves and to see everything that we are capable of. I mean, had you told me 10 years ago that I would be doing what I'm doing now, I would never have believed it, because I didn't see that as a possibility for my life. And one of the best things that I did on this journey was to go and have coffee with as many different people from as many different walks of life as were possible, to see, what they did, why they did it, how did they do it, what got them started in it. And that opened my mind in a huge way, because I came from the world of corporate, where everybody thought, acted like me, thought like me, we did the same jobs. And so I was in this bubble. So it was really about breaking open that bubble and opening the doors to possibility, and I began to see, oh, I have skills that could align with something very different. But I wouldn't have been able to see that had I stayed in the environment that I was in, because I was in the box, right? And it was about opening the box, widening the sides of the box, and in some cases crushing the box, to really be able to see who I was fully in my, as my whole self.
Jennifer, you look like no, not look, but like you sound like a person. I mean, sound by the way, I mean, from what your show presents and so on. I think you could relate to the fact that sometimes everything is sagging at a certain age, and how to look confident even though my boobs are sagging, and there is this and that, and I could cut this or a little bit of lifting done here and there. How do you stay so positive and so confident even though the age is showing?
Yeah. Again, as women, we have been taught to see our value in what we look like, right? So am I physically pleasing to somebody outside of myself? And so when things change and we no longer fit the beauty ideal, and we see something like 3,000 messages every day of what the ideal beauty is in women, right? So when we no longer fit the beauty ideal, we start to, think less of ourselves, right? Like we start to doubt ourselves. And we start focusing on everything that we are losing in this time. When we're doing that, we're actually missing the point, because this stage of our lives has got nothing to do with what's happening outside of us, and it has everything to do with what's happening inside of us, right? Like Mother Nature didn't just drop us off of, in the deep end and say, hey, go fend for yourself. It's a shift that's happening, externally, going through menopause and all of that, right? But it's also a shift that's happening inside of us to be able to, go inwards to that meaning about what's important to us and to redirect our purpose in life. And so if we're focused on everything that we're losing, we're missing the point. This is about not what we look like, but who we are and everything that we have, all of the knowledge and the experience and the wisdom. That is the focus of this chapter of our lives. And you know what? Let me just say, there's not to say that there's anything wrong with anybody, doing Botox or having fillers or, plastic surgery or any of that kind of stuff. Like, I truly believe everybody should do whatever it is that they want to do so that they can feel good about themselves. But let that not be the sole focus of, our value in this time of our lives, because it's not about what's happening on the outside. It's about everything that's happening inside.
And what would be your words to those who overdo on Botox or lifting or whatever operations keep them alive?
Yeah. For me, I look at that and I would ask the question about, what, to me, there's something lacking on the inside. Like, I'm trying to, fulfill my value by changing the way that I look so that I fit in, instead of just honoring the person that you are. And so maybe it's a self-esteem issue, or, there's many, many reasons why people do those things. And, overdoing is very much, in the eye of the beholder, right? For some people, it may be overdone and other people not. But if your sole focus is on what you look like, then, I would definitely focus more on, self-love, compassion for yourself, and really just like seeing the value in who you are as a person, as opposed to your physical body, because we have no control over that physical body. We have no control over our age. Like, we're all aging every single solitary day, right? So, if we're trying to control something that's not controllable, we're wasting a lot of time and energy that could be redirected in something that is so much more satisfying and fulfilling, for ourselves and our lives.
That's very interesting. And Jennifer, thank you very much for this word of wisdom, because we definitely need more self-loving people. And to those of who are watching our show, there is no denying that I am a big fan of Cindy Gallop, who is definitely pro-age, pro-sex, pro knowing the difference, and pro women in tech and our community. And her great line is actually, because she's working in the marketing industry, is marketers overlook over the fact that we have more money to spend. They
Yes.
advertise to the younger generation, whereas it's our generation who have the
Yeah.
means to spend. Why is that? Why do they overlook us? Any idea, Jennifer?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, especially when, like you said, we have more disposable income than any, than any age cohort in history. And we make 95% of all buying decisions. So it really is sad that we get overlooked because, again, I think there is this notion of being less relevant, less valuable, and they want to spend their money on what's glitzy, and what looks good. And so I mean, I don't fully understand it, no, but I think it's a big miss. It's a really big miss. And it's, I think, something that is changing. I think we're starting to see, a more diverse, population in marketing and mainstream media, but there's still a lot of work to be done around, the aging population because, like I said, my pet peeve is the fact that age is represented by, meal replacement shakes, bladder protection, and retirement plans. All valuable, all necessary, but it's a tiny, tiny fraction of the story.
Absolutely. It's a very good advice. I hope marketers take notice. And let's go into the soft skills. What do you believe are the five soft skills all career driven females, regardless the age, should have?
Five specifically career skills.
It could be entrepreneurial skills as well.
Yeah, I think first of all, knowing who you are and what you want. So really, yeah, having a solid foundation in yourself for sure. Working on, especially if you're going for a promotion, if you're building a business, if you all those kinds of things, again, rooting yourself in all of your accomplishments. So look back, create, the I'm a rock star list of all the things that you have, accomplished and done to this day, and read that over and over again to remind yourself, how truly badass you are. I think also, just being able to recognize the thoughts that are holding us back, right? Like, what are challenging the beliefs that we have about ourselves, and asking ourselves, are they really, really true? And then dismantling those, challenging those beliefs, because 99% of the time, the stories that we tell ourselves about ourselves are not true, and that comes back to the reading the jar from the outside, right? And then you know dreaming big, like dream, as I think it was Oprah who said that, dream the biggest version of your life because you will become who you believe. So like, aim big, aim big. And even if you don't get there, you will be farther than you would have you aim small. And, honor the fact that, as women, we're powerful. We are not little men. We have our own different strengths, and ways of doing things that are incredibly valuable and very needed. And I think owning the fact that we are women and that we might do things a little bit differently than men, I think is really important.
Now, Jennifer, you talked about your podcast a lot. Is there any other resources like groups or whether online, offline, that you would recommend
Yeah.
for those who would like to be part of a bigger movement?
Yeah, absolutely. One of my favorite things right now that I'm doing is a group called the Maven Collective. So this is specifically a group of midlife women who are in the process of reinventing themselves, reinventing their careers, starting businesses, and who are coming together to support and inspire each other, for accountability. And because it can feel like a very lonely journey sometimes, if you're branching out different than your friends and your peers, and maybe your family doesn't understand. And so being in a group with like-minded women who are on the same journey as you is so incredibly important. And I truly believe, and I've believed this all my life, that we are so much better, we get so much further as a collective than we could ever on our own. So that's the thing that's really exciting me right now.
Oh, absolutely. If we talk about collective, I cannot overlook more comments here. We've got comment from Patrick again. Poised, intelligent, lively, experienced women of substance with achievements. I see my idea of female beauty in a delightful stereo on the PhD screen in front of me. Go Beata and Jennifer. Thank you so much. That's kind of
Thank
you,
you.
Patrick. And Olga Vasina, it's an interesting point, Beata. Example, if you look at Argentina, where young women have even less disposable income, the fashion industry is traditionally oriented towards ladies aged at least 40 plus and often 50 plus, as they are fabulously discerning and frequent buyers of fashion with the cash to pay. There you go. And we have a comment from Mary. Amazing episode tonight, Beata and Jennifer. A lot of wisdom and self reflection. Thank you, Mary. Stay with us. It's not over yet. We've got Jennifer for another 15 minutes. Now, Jennifer, uh, I know that you couldn't be where you are if it wasn't for help of some people. I mean, of course, you could be. However, it is important to be supported by others. Is there any particular person you're grateful towards or a group apart from Maven that you just mentioned?
Yeah. Help is incredibly important. We were never meant, to do this life on our own. So, from the beginning of my own reinvention journey, I made sure that I always had a coach or a mentor. One of the things that I knew early on in the journey was that my life was a reflection of myself. And if I wanted my life to be different, then I had to show up differently in it. And so having somebody outside of yourself who can, challenge you to think a little bit differently, who can call you on the things that maybe you can't see, is incredibly important. And then also having a mastermind group. So similar to Maven, to the Maven Collective, I have always been part of a mastermind group. So having like-minded women to, hold my belief on the days that I am struggling, women that I can ask questions to, that I can bounce ideas off, absolutely necessary. Doing it alone. Could we do it alone? Absolutely. Should we do it alone? I recommend not. I think it's so much more satisfying, and I think you get so much farther faster by doing it as part of a group or having that support to help you, overcome the obstacles and setbacks, because there will be along the way. I mean, that's life. But, not quitting when we come across a setback or an obstacle, and being able to, regroup, reset, and recommit is really, really important.
Beautiful. Thank you, Jennifer. I think it's also important to be able to cherish each other and support each other, not just talk about struggles and be supported that way, but also celebrate these successes, yes, no matter how small. Are you working on any new success, Jennifer, right now?
So there is a book in the works, for sure. And one of the things that I'm looking at is starting a charitable organization to be able to support women who, midlife women who are looking to, reinvent themselves in their lives. Because I read a stat a little while ago that said that women are 80% more likely to be impoverished in retirement than men. And when that really opened my eyes. And when you unpack the reasons for that, I mean, it starts early on in our careers where, women are less likely to negotiate their salaries, to begin with. So we maybe start lower. We get penalized financially for the years that we have kids and that we're raising kids. Our income is not growing as fast as men's at that time. Women reach their peak earnings on average at age 42. Men, it's age 52, and the gap is like 40%. And then, in the later chapters of life, you layer on, death, illness, divorce, and, the things that, women definitely take the financial brunt of. It can leave women, behind the eight ball and struggling financially later in life. And so being able to help women, support women, to start businesses, to, retrain for new careers, so that they can have some kind of financial agency later on in life is incredibly important to me. So that's actually on the horizon as well.
Excellent. We are looking forward to the development and we will be happy to share it with our network. Make sure you notified us, Jennifer. And I recommend to everybody also our previous episode that was devoted to the age issues, and it was called Embracing Your Bonus Years as a Time to Grow, Learn, and Evolve with
Yes.
Dorian Mintzer. There you go. Now, let's bring a quotation. Middle age is when you're old enough to know better, but young enough to not care, Shaliba
Yes.
says.
Yes.
Now, we like to take this quotation to the new level and always test our speakers on the Eleanor Roosevelt quote. Women are like tea bags. You never know their true strength until you put them in hot water.
Yes.
So, Jennifer, how are you brewing?
Oh, I think I love this. That first of all, I love that quote. And, for me, the hot water and being under the pressure of having to reinvent my life really brought out the best in me. And I think I alluded to this, that, that midlife crisis was actually such a gift because it really was key. Like, so being in that hot water was really key in me becoming the woman that I am today and doing the work that I'm doing today. So I am just so eternally grateful for that. And so I think I'm brewing pretty well, actually.
Absolutely. Now, let's go to the book you would recommend. I wish I read it before I started
Mhm.
my journey. So, what's the number one book you recommend to everybody?
You know, I'm a huge fan of Brene Brown. And one book that I read, like early in my journey, was The Gifts of Imperfection, and really being able to see ourselves as unique beings, that that we don't have to necessarily fit into a mold, and that every one of us has value, in our uniqueness, in our eccentricities. So incredibly important because, the world wants us to fit into a box. And for most of us, we don't fit into any one box. And so embracing all of who we are and accepting all of who we are, I think is key to confidence, right? And again, that person who walks into the room and just owns who they are is a very confident person. And I think that takes you a very long way.
That chick that walks with confidence and delivers golden eggs is definitely somebody to strive towards. And let's go into imagining that you could meet anyone in the world for a private breakfast. Who would it be and where would you choose to meet? Share your piece and the reason why.
I would I would love to have breakfast with Oprah on her compound. I admire so much about her, not because of her financial success. I mean, obviously that's great and she's accomplished a lot, but her ability to really connect with people on the most human of levels, and to really get into their stories and how their stories can help other people. I'm so inspired by that, because we see ourselves in other people's stories, right? And anything that we can do that helps us feel less alone in what we might be experiencing, which is the reason why I started the collective, to help us see ourselves as, not alone in whatever we're struggling with, I think is just so important. And I think she does that so brilliantly.
That's a great example because I believe Oprah also found out her career by seeing what she didn't want to do. Not so much she didn't know
Yes,
what she wanted to do, but really what she didn't like her career to be like.
exactly.
Now, what is the number one quote and how did it change you, Jennifer?
Um, my number one quote.
Life
I
lesson quote.
life lesson quote. I think there's one by the philosopher Lao Tzu that says, "Let go of who you are so that you can become who you might be." Because again, letting go of those preconceived notions of who we think we are so that we can expand into the fullness of who we actually are really has been instrumental for me on my journey.
Mm. At middle age, we know so much we can't remember half of it. By retirement, we know so little we can't remember most of it. Evelyn Walk says. Now, as we are heading towards the end of our lovely show, we have another comment waiting to be mentioned. Olga Vasina, thank you so much for being very avid supporter. Olga says, fabulous show. Thank you for being a real inspiration, Jennifer, alongside our longtime inspiration, Beata. Thank you so much. We had great comments from also IPOV, Patrick Young, and Mary. Thank you, everyone. And as we are well past mid-age of our show today, I would like to thank Jennifer very much for today's inspiration and to stay updated and ensure you never miss a positivity hacks delivered. Follow Women on IT and turn on notifications to be alerted once a video has been released. Next week, we're gonna talk to Emily Cherkin and we're gonna cover the topic how to smash through age no, sorry, raising digital citizens, why tech intentional parenting matters. That's going to be episode 139. Thank you so much for our lovely audience. And as always, our positivity quote comes from positive thinking only and goes, look for something positive in each day, even if some days you have to look a little harder. And that applies for every age, ladies and gentlemen. And finally, as Maya Angelou says, if you don't like something, change it. If you can't change it, change your attitude. Today is your day to hack the future, hack the positivity you want. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Jennifer, for a great show today.
Thank you for having me.